Radagon is Marika. Elden Ring is Dark Souls 2. It is not hard to play FromSoftware's newest release in the Souls formula in the form of Elden Ring and not see the logical progression that began 15 years ago with Demon's Souls. Elden Ring is the pinnacle of a clear design philosophy and a rich lore that has been reiterated over several games. Each previous Souls game has played a vital role in Elden Ring's narrative and gameplay mechanics. The approach of if it ain't broke, don't fix it has never been so successful, cherished, and admired in recent memory within gaming. However, one game from the series' legacy does stand to be Elden Ring's closest sibling. That, of course, is Dark Souls 2. Upon a first playthrough, it may not seem as closely related to the infamous black sheep of the series. At first glance, Elden Ring often plays like big Dark Souls 3, with the favor in well-timed dodges, frantically paced boss battles, and bombastic orchestral anthems that highlight most boss encounters. With closer examination, it is not too far of a stretch to say that Elden Ring is in fact Dark Souls 2, 2. Elden Ring in many ways stands as the original intent of Dark Souls 2 and then some. What this series aims to do is highlight the influence of Dark Souls 2 on Elden Ring. In this series, we will engage with the thematic and gameplay aspects that both games share. While many of these ideas do come from a consolidation of the community's lore hunters, data miners, and even speedrunners, some thoughts will be of my own interpretation. Without the hard work of these dedicated fans, the rest of the community would not have even a fraction of the game's rich and convoluted lore deciphered. Many claims or suggestions I make are more akin to theory or guesses based on my experience with both games' mechanics and lore rather than defining answers. So where do we start our journey in parallel between Drangleic and the Lands Between? Naturally, we turn to some of the first boss encounters the Bearer of the Cursed and the Tarnished find themselves pitted against, Morgott and the Pursuer. One of the simplest similarities between these characters is in their mechanical function in their respective games. Both actively pursue the player and watch over them with surprise encounters on a first playthrough. Morgott can be encountered as Morgott in the Lanedale battlefield and, of course, at the foot of the Erd Tree. The Pursuer is more frequently encountered, being found up to 9 different locations depending on the playthrough. The most interesting location that the Pursuer can be found is in Vendrick's throne room, where 2 can appear at once. Both characters can be found at the 3/4 climax in critical locations, both being Lanedale and Drangleic Castle. Both characters are also found near the thrones that represent the rule over both kingdoms. Morgott is found at the foot of the Erd Tree, and the Pursuer is found in Vendrick's throne room in Drangleic Castle. The parallels don't stop here either. Both characters also share a similar occupation or role in the narrative of their associated games. Starting with Morgott, he is known to the Lands Between as the Omen King, the Grace Given, the Veiled Monarch, and Morgott the Fell Omen. Under the alias of Morgott the Fell, he is likely one of the first boss encounters that the Tarnished can find on their journey. His purpose is that of gatekeeper to Stormveil Castle, where the Tarnished are instructed to enter by Melina, the guide and maiden of the Tarnished. Stormveil is where the first great rune can be found, making the castle a likely first stop on the journey to becoming Elden Lord. This makes a fitting spot for Morgott to stand guard, squashing any Tarnished who step foot within range of the castle gate. He, like many other enemy characters in Elden Ring, does not want to see a Tarnished upon the throne of Elden Lord. To him, their existence and their flame of ambition goes against everything the Golden Order stands for, of which he is a devout, if not the most devout, of its disciples. Similarly, the Pursuer is an exterminator that roams the kingdom of Drangleic. The Bearer of the Curse will likely first encounter them either on an elevated platform in the Forest of Fallen Giants, as a surprise first encounter, or towards the end of the same location along a walkway of fortified wall behind some collapsed statues. The pursuer, like Morgott, can appear almost instantly, either rising from the ground or being dropped off by a large eagle. The pursuer functions similarly as an initial boss that fills the role of halting the player progress both in their actions and associated item descriptions. Like Morgott, it is not hard to imagine that the pursuer has slayed many bearers of the curse looking to progress their journey. While we do not get any dialogue to indicate his previous victims like Morgott, we can see his armor is adorned with gasping or screaming faces embedded within, almost as if they were souls trapped within the armor itself. The pursuer also carries a quiver of assorted weapons which might suggest trophies from fallen victims a la General Grievous style from the Star Wars prequels. The pursuer appears when one least expects it, likely to catch the bearer of the curse off guard. As his soul description suggests, he will not rest until his target is slain, which makes sense given being called the pursuer. Morgott/Morgott is a bit more overt in his approach towards his action and goals towards the player through his dialogue. His dialogue suggests that he sees the tarnished as vermin, calling them foul and graceless. Morgott/Margit enjoys his pastime as it serves his belief, his gods, and his mother Marika. Here he is operating as an exterminator of the tarnished in order to protect the Erdtree, which, as stated by his remembrance, had no love for him and his service. Morgott is regal and stuffy in his demeanor towards the tarnished. He even first encounters them literally looking down upon them. Morgott does not command anything of the tarnished, such as kneeling or fleeing, but instead simply states that if someone is going to put them down, he would be the one to do it. The condescending tone continues further when the tarnished wounds him to 60% health. Morgott further gloats, claiming that the tarnished might actually be skilled and a cut above the others he has likely put down previously. It would not be too far of a stretch to consolidate these points to state that Morgott operates as the hand of the Golden Order or the exterminator of the tarnished. Ironically enough, Morgott, being an Omen, is seen as a curse upon the world, or lesser than, just like the tarnished. Morgott is an Omen, which is a cursed individual with large horns and a grotesque tail, and other blemishes that are seen as impure in the lands between. Morgott holds much shame for his curse and works to hold it back. He will unleash the curse when wounded in his third encounter, stating, "The thrones, stained by my curse, such a shame I cannot bear. Thy part in this shall not be forgiven." Morgott will begin emitting and coughing a dark gold liquid that seems to be a byproduct of withholding the curse. His sword will begin to glow red with blood from the curse that produces an effect similar to fire. This is essentially a reluctant power-up mode that Morgott can call upon as a last-ditch effort to protect the Erdtree. It is heavily implied that the pursuer may also be cursed, just like the undead of Drangleic or something similar. This might be due to past sins mentioned in the description of his ultra greatsword and shield. The pursuer's armor has indents of screaming faces, implying that these may be trapped souls within his armor. He even appears through this thick black smog that is that of similar nature and consistency to the cursed pots of the Shaded Woods. He, like Morgott, has some affliction that is being withheld or only used in times of need. The pursuer will occasionally rear back and release this affliction that results in these orbs that might resemble faces, like his armor. But all these extra abilities are gained by stabbing the bearer of the curse with his sword that sort of acts as a power-up mode, which also deals curse damage. This is all very similar to Morgott's behavior when entering Phase 2 of this boss fight. While we do not see the pursuer in Dark Souls 3, we are able to obtain the Curseword Great Shield that he used to carry. The item description states that the shield could represent the weight of attempting to resist the curse, much like Morgott's resistance of his own Omen curse. These characters share an interesting and unique opposition to being cursed while hunting down others considered to be cursed or lesser than. The pursuer is atoning for his sins, and Morgott is looking for acceptance from the Erdtree, with his sin being his existence alone. Through their means of putting down the weak in service to themselves or outside influences, both characters seek to make themselves right or pure in a sense. With these concepts highlighted, feel free to let me know if I missed anything. I wanted to take a look at the material and similarities that stuck out to me the most while keeping the video relatively short, so I'm sure that I missed some things. This was a video that I was looking forward to making, as both characters rank as some of my favorite bosses from both games. I'm also excited at the prospect of diving into more similarities between these two games, since there are so many concepts, ideas, and characters that line up rather closely. If anything, I see Morgott as the evolution of the Pursuer, or if the Pursuer were to live a second life. The stalking of the player character, the similar curse effects, the teleporting, their place in the narrative, etc., all seem to play on one another very well. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and feel free to like and subscribe, as it helps this small channel of mine begin to grow. Your time and interests are both greatly appreciated. Take care.